Okay, starting with Łukasz. Łukasz here is going to talk to us a little bit about the music scene in Poland specifically. He is a composer come businessman, if anything, a success story of how you can have your passions in music, have your interests, your hobbies, and then you can turn it into something and it actually becomes successful. Turn it into a business and it's a successful thing. Let me move closer because I can't see you. Hold on. So aside from Łukasz being a composer, he has opened up his studio spot, which does music production and post-production for television and film in Poland on a pretty big commercial, big scale. Yeah. Okay, so talk to us a little bit about what it was like when you first started composing. What was the scene in Poland? What was the music scene like in Poland? And what did it look like? What was the process that you went to in order to, the thought process to creating, to producing, selling, distributing, promotion, all that?
Yeah, so hello, and regarding your question. When I was younger, the whole process of production of the music was different. Like it was you have to do rehearsals. You have to have a couple of guys or girls to play the music. You have to take care about the place for rehearsals. You have to write the music. Then you have to rehearse. Then you have to choose the studio, the recording studio, which was super expensive. And then, well prepared, you have to record your music. And it took normally it took let's say half a year, at least half a year, or even longer, sometimes even longer. So now the things have changed because the world have changed. New machines, computers, and new software is so fast, and it's so big tool to achieve the final product of the musical art that it sometimes took a day. I'm working with computer, and sometimes I compose 2 or 3 minutes of the symphonic music a day. So it's pretty crazy because when I started to work in the business, you should take all symphonic orchestra. You have to print notes and sheets for them. So it was completely different process. So basically the things are faster now, and the things are easier for people to to have them at home. You don't have to create or build a recording studio. You have to work at home, at your room, and you could achieve a pretty good product or pretty good music, right?
Okay, what would you say was the trigger for you to realize that you need to do something more than just composing and creating music? What happened? What was going on? Or was it an internal thing? Was it external?
When I started as a sideman, as a musician who you can hire to ask him to play a different kind of the music. I graduated a guitar from in Katowice in the jazz and pop music. And I started to play with many people, in many styles, and I did a lot of shows. And later on, I found myself that it's even more creative to compose the music. And when I find this idea, I said to myself, you need to have a facility to make it. So I set a studio. That was the breaking point of my career. I think that I need to compose. I need to be creative, more creative than just a guitar player.
So it was more you personally realizing I need to do something a little bit more. I need to be making money. It wasn't like, oh, the industry's changing. Maybe I should kind of follow it and do something.
Yeah, a little, but the first idea was the art. I need to create more art, and yeah, of course, I realized that. I can start with the computer at home, and I was pretty good, so I earned the money, and I went with the market, right?
Okay. How would you say based on what, I mean, you talked about what the situation or what the scene was like when you first started. How would you say that technology influenced your work personally, in positive ways, in negative ways? Was it more difficult? Oh, I mean, or what ways was it more difficult or easier?
As I said, it was completely different to 20 years ago. It was totally, the way of producing music now and composing music is totally different. So I can see two things, I would say. First one is a big benefit from new technologies and computers and new virtual instruments, because it can give you the chance to create the music at home and blah blah blah. But the second thing is that a lot of people have a tool to create the music, and I, as an educated musician, I have to accept it, because everybody can produce music now. The thing is,
everybody can what? Sorry, what did you say?
Everybody can produce music.
Okay.
Right. So the most important thing is you have to put your heart into your music, because if you use just the samples and things like that, it is not extraordinary. It's typical.
Well, do you feel, so you're saying there's no heart in technology?
There could be no heart in technology. The more heart in technology, the bigger sucks.
Well, what about tech people? I'm sure the people that focus on tech, I'm sure they're putting their heart into it. So different, how can you, or not how can you, but what would you say is different about your approach than, say, somebody that's coming from the tech side, who is passionate about what they're doing?
I think passion is a passion. So if you have a passion for soft, or you have passion for new technologies, or you have a passion for composing music, the passion is a passion. And the more passion and technology, when these things meet together, it's the best idea to create the music and the business. Okay.
Let's see. One of the questions that we can also kind of ask for the rest of you, well, for you as well, Piotr, when all of the advancements in technology started coming about thanks to the internet and everything, and distribution going much further, in terms of Poland and what was going on politically during the 90s, what aspects of the political change, or talk to me a little bit about what was changing in Poland as it related to technology and music? How did what was going on here politically have an effect on the music industry?
I would say it's an access to the new technologies, right? Because after the change, we had an access, and we are using it, and I see no big difference between Poland and other countries regarding using computers and internet and things like that. So I think we get an access, so it's the most important for us. Right?
So thanks to the internet, you're able to have internet and a liking of mobile gadgets and computers and everything, you have just as easy access to...
I have easy access to publish my music, for example. I can publish it using many tools like iTunes, Spotify, Deezer, Muzodajnia, which is Polish local distributor of the music. So yeah, internet helps for sure.
Okay. Piotr, what do you think about what was going on politically? Like, from maybe a legal standpoint, what were some of the obstacles that needed to be overcome, or that you were faced with, that you saw the industry was faced with in the 90s?
Firstly, it's working here.
Yeah.
Firstly, 25 years ago, we become free. And that was the beginning. And in my situation, we could release the first music cassettes of Jacek Kaczmarski. That was the beginning of our company, because he could come to the Free Poland in May 90. And after we changed the law, because till 94, the Polish market in 95% was pirated. And we changed the law, and we had in 94 the modern law like Western countries. And the technology after that came to Poland very fast. Naturally, it was in the 90s, the music cassette market. And but the CD came at the beginning of the century, and the technology with the internet and this, streaming MP3, we adapted in the same time, like in every country.
Okay, okay. Were you going to say something?
Not really. iTunes came into Poland 3 years ago,
right.
and Deezer and Spotify and Wimp last year.
Mm-hmm.
That they would be late, and I think that they had to start, a few years ago, but country by country, and we've been not a big market for them.
So you don't necessarily. I guess you're saying that once in '94, in mid-'90s, once the changes happened within the country. I mean, I'm curious what specifically was happening to the music industry. Was there any tripling effects of it, or specific obstacles that you guys needed to deal with, or that were different or specific to Poland in comparison to the rest of the global?
The most specific was that before '89, it was Polskie Nagrania with 95% of the market share, music market share. It was a monopoly. And in '90, it was around 700 music companies. 500 of them were pirates because the law, it was not prohibited. But now there's around 70, music company. But that was the specific. It was growing music market, and also everything what we released, it was played by the radio station. The radio station were very open to the new music in this time, and they forgotten completely about the communist artist. It was a complete hole. Like in France, Mireille Mathieu, Johnny Hallyday, or another big artist, they've been on the scene all the time. In our case, the old communist artists went gone for some times because it was not modern for
it wasn't modern,
market,
yes. Yeah. So it was mostly international, less.
International,
would you say
local,
that it was more?
In this time, it was Hey, Kasia Kowalska, Edyta Bartosiewicz, Edyta Górniak. It was plenty of new artists coming in '90s. Now we have a problem that there is not a big star like that, and big hits like in beginning of '90s, like in the '80s, and we have a problem because the radio stations are scared to play new music, young music, because they have the research. And they want to have the 25% of market share, and the money from the advertisement. That's the target. That's their target, and that's what they're focusing on. Okay. Were you going to say something?
I just had a question. And it's for the for the folks that are in the sort of composition side of music.
Right.
I feel like we're in the golden age of consumption. There's so many amazing ways we can consume music in any place in a variety of formats, whether it's in a pure audio stream or even in an audio and video stream. But from a composition standpoint, I'm curious if you feel like if we're in a golden age of composition, do you think the state of the art is at its peak today, or do you think that we had a golden age in some sort of previous era?
Well, I think it's quite harder to achieve this level, the golden level, because regarding all this new soft, you don't have to work so much to achieve average product, but you still can reach the highest level. In my opinion, it's a thing of as I say, work and being original, using musicians and using the tools like tools, not like the final art soul of the music. So that's my answer.
Okay. Okay, Piotr, if you would like to, Piotr has a presentation for us that he's going to show some stats and some facts and figures on the mostly sales aspect of sales
and the global market in the world.
Market.
When we are now, what was in the past, when it was for the CD, the golden age. When we started with EMI cooperating, because I worked 20 years for EMI, it was in Western country the gold age for CDs, and I can show you that that was last year, and you can see that digital is growing, and the performance rights are when you are hearing the music in big mall, in the radio stations, they have to pay us the production fees. The synchronization, that's for the TV series, advertisement, this kind of stuff. They have to pay us for the hits. And the physical is growing down, but last year it was a very good year for the music business. The down is only because of the Japan, because the Japan market decreased 17%, 16.7%. That's the history. You can see that it was the physical, the CDs and vinyl. In the 90s, it was around $25 to $26 billion. This is the wholesaler's price. When you are adding, the margin for the shops and the VATs, and it was around $32 to $34 billion. Now we have more, naturally, digital. Digital is helping not to go down. And I will tell a little bit about the digital also. Physical 51%, still very important in many countries, 39% digital revenues. Compared to another business, the press and books is 5 to 7%, the digital, and the music business is only 1%. That we have done, we passed a good lesson when we stopped and fight it with the Napster, when Edgar Bronfman Jr., the chairman of Universal, said in 1999 that the internet is useless for the music business. And that was the beginning of our troubles, because we wanted, for example, in Poland, to create a special shops like iTunes. After that, Steve Jobs created that, or like Spotify. But it was stopped by the headquarters because they decided to fight with internet. I remember in 1999, I said to my people yesterday that using internet in the office, it was prohibited because it was, losing time. And yeah.
Wait, did everybody hear that?
Yeah.
It was prohibited to use the internet back in the day because
no MySpace
it was a waste
this
of time.
time. It was no Facebook and
so
this
what,
kind
porn?
of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. In the world, yeah. Porno?
Yeah, that's a joke.
And you can see that what I said before. That's what is happening now. That you saw that the downloads, especially iTunes, was growing to 2010-11. But now subscription business is especially Spotify, Deezer, Pandora, and this kind of stuff is growing very fastly. Especially also in States. I know that for the first quarter of this year, iTunes decreased his sales around 23%. That means that the people are moving to Pandora Beats because Apple bought it from the owners, and also Spotify is on the market, and Deezer is planning to go to States.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? Is Pandora available in Poland? It's not yet.
Oh.
Pandora?
No.
Yeah, not yet.
Not at all. It's typical Americans,
Right.
And that you can see the subscription revenue triple 3 times. That it's quite a lot. That's the value. Jumping. For example, this one is 28 million people used last year, of the streaming services, and it's quite fast-growing business. Naturally, the problem of Spotify and Deezer is they are losing the money. 24% of they are paying to the repertoire owner. They have to, it's a loss for them. It's a problem, a matter of scale, but also I think, for example, the 10 euro per month is not a lot of money for everybody. For Spotify, for Deezer, or for it's not a lot of money for the customers, naturally, but for every repertoire owner, also the business model is too low, from my point of view, for a long time. Yeah, you can see there's plenty of services. Deezer, Spotify, and Wimp are in Poland. I have some information that Orange is negotiating a deal with Akazu. There's another third streaming service. The Muza made by Cyfrowy Polsat is dying. It's a Polish streaming service, but it will be not working. And what happened in the Nordic countries, that it was an increase of growth, 84% of the market for the last 5 years of using, this streaming services, and less people are using the pirated, services. Less, 89%. What the people are using Spotify. You can see the income of the Nordic countries because of Spotify is increasing, but Nordics are special because it's more than 80% of the music business income are coming from Spotify. iTunes is 1 or 2% in Norway, 5% in Sweden. You can see and another thing. What is interesting that the world is completely different. Each countries are using different, services. For example, in Japan, only 15% of the revenues are from digital. In Sweden, 80% are from digital, and some of them are they have the download service, some is a subscription. That there is no one model for the world. In States, 60% of revenues is digital, 40% physical.
And what would you say are the factors that influence it? That, I mean, surely, companies come up with, or people come up with companies, services in their own country, so naturally it's going to be more popular there. But what other factors would you attribute to that?
Firstly, it's access to the Wi-Fi. Okay. And in Poland, 49% of the territory we have a broadband Wi-Fi. For example, in Sweden and Norway, it's more than 100%. That's the main factor. And sometimes you have a telecommunication problem with your mobile, because I will tell something about the smartphones, because the smartphones is a big chance for the music business, because you can have the new hits in few moments everywhere if you have the Wi-Fi, naturally. That's the different model. And for example, the albums, the South Korea, there are only 1% of the using people the internet and the digital services are downloading the whole albums. And in Germany, it's around 60%. That's showing that the world is completely different, and we don't know really what is happening, or the people are using the digital for one song. That's the proportion. 41% is the CDs worldwide, and you can see what are the income that is going really to the digital model. In Poland, for example, last year it was 15% digital, 85% physical. I think this year it will be around 20 to 25 digital. For example, in my region, I'm responsible for Eastern Europe. In Warner, it's around 30% already. In some countries, we have 50% of the income are coming from the digital service, and another 30% from performance rights. And the physical is very, very low. That's the users of major music streaming services in the world. The biggest is Pandora, Spotify, Deezer, and the services are coming on the market. And this Beat service is also a streaming service, because the Apple see that iTunes is going down. They have to have a fashion model now on the market. That's another numbers. Deezer has 5 million paying subscribers. They announce now they have 10 million. 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago, they announced it's 1 million. There's some numbers that I will show you. It's another thing. Is awareness of the licensed services. The most popular is YouTube, naturally, and YouTube is used by the young people. It's the main source of the music for everybody. Smartphones are the most important thing for our business now, because there is a plan that next year it will be 1 billion smartphones in the world. Now it's around 600 million. And the access to the smartphones is quite big. But interesting that there's some research that only 75% of the people knows what to use with the smartphones. They're using like telephone, nothing else. And they have the smartphones and they don't care about what is happening with. And some numbers that the plan is next in 2016 to have 50 million people in the subscription paying, because you can see how many people are using. 1.5 billion people in the world are using the services paying nothing. And not really they have to listen some adverts, but it's not covering the cost of the services. This is the huge problem. But 50 million, it will be the break point of the business, what is very important. That's for 2017. There's some numbers that in 2017, I saw that in the Bloomberg this Monday they released the article that in 2017 190 million people using paying subscription, And the revenue of the music business will be $46 billion, what I'm not believing, because now we have 15. That means that in 2-3 years it will be tripling, what is not possible, I think. In the countries like Eastern Europe, the smaller countries, the increase of the value of the sales because of the digital is much more faster than the developed market. 124% in Latin America. I have around 100% in Eastern Europe. That means that where in the countries when the CDs are not selling, the increase of the bundle deals between Deezer, Spotify with the telecom is increasing our revenue very fast. And we have a new source of revenue not existed, 5-6 years ago. Vinyl. It's a nice information. 32% increase last year. And we are releasing plenty of vinyls because it's a really snobbish fashion to have a vinyl record, player and to buy vinyls. That means the market is very interesting. And naturally, the average size of the vinyls is not growing so fast, but the catalog is much more wider, and that's why we have these numbers. And this is interesting. And the future, it's music everywhere. And what I know from also that not only at home to have Deezer and listening the music from Deezer, Spotify, but also in a car. That's the future for the business. If you have access to every services in the car, not through your smartphone, that's the future, because there's plenty of cars in the world, and every of them will be. But the Wi-Fi has to be everywhere and free. That's the future. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for that. So if you are a tech startup, let's say you're a music tech startup, or you're a band and you want to, in both cases, and you want to go global, you're already at a point where you're kind of doing well in Poland and you want to go beyond and you know that, okay, I need to promote our band, I need to be touring, etc. Looking at all these facts and figures, what as a band or a startup, how can you use this, knowing that every country is different, every country has different, one country uses Spotify more, the next one uses Deezer, the next one doesn't even have either of those, the next one doesn't have Wi-Fi, right? Or just the internet at all.
Yeah, I think you can build a community of fans, and you can rely on them, and they can support you, and it can be a new approach to being a superstar, like an international superstar, global superstar. Because I truly believe that if you want to start an international career here in Poland, for example, you have to forget about Poland because of the new technologies. Because you have to think in a global way, not a local way. And
what do you think most people that are successful, most musicians that are successful in Poland, not necessarily out there, in Poland, do you think that they do think globally? Or did luck just happen and they kind of became famous outside?
In my opinion, some of them are trying to be global, some trying to be international. But the thing is that it's my opinion, of course. They still don't use new tools like building this community. For example,
because they don't have access, or they're lazy.
It's only one direction to go out of here. So,
okay.
Yeah, we have one band, Motion Trio, and they are more classical. And they are playing, 90% of the concerts are playing outside of Poland. We released the album. We've sold only in Poland 500 units, and we sold outside already 1,500. Okay. Naturally, when I saw how in internet, in digital, the people listened that, it was almost nothing. They are everywhere on iTunes, Deezer, worldwide. There's somebody listening them, but this kind of classical, for example, stuff are selling on CDs. But 90% of the time they are spending outside of Poland. Naturally, they are not a superstar, but they are very good in what they are doing.
But when you track them on, for example, Facebook, you can, because I know them from Krakow, by the way. So when you track them, you see a living wall. There are a lot of informations, what they are going, with who they are playing. They are playing with international stars. So you have this feeling that it is not just a local thing. They are, turbo space.
Yeah, but this is a niche, but we are very good in niche, to be the best in the niche. But it's very difficult to compete with Beyoncé or the pop stars. It's better to start, in the grant in different kind when we can compete with another artist, because we don't have, $10 million for promotion, and
right.
Because it's a small country, our music market in Poland is 60 times smaller than the American. And the USA plus Canada is 40% of the music market worldwide.
And UK?
But UK is around 10, 12%. But if you see the worldwide average, that 70% of the music what is selling is the local music.
70% of the music in Poland that is selling it?
No, 70% worldwide.
Okay,
That's the average. In the United States, 94% are local, made in USA. That if you want to be a star in USA, you have to be released in USA and to stay and to tour, to play the concerts, etc. Work very hard. If not, if you are traveling as a tourist for some concert, you can play for the Polish people in Chicago or New York.
Okay, well, really quickly before we move on to Ashvin then, so you guys are in a way saying if you want to go global, you need to forget about being Polish. Or forget about not being Polish, but forget about the Polish market.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
How does that make you guys feel? Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What are the future effects of that?
It's a future thing. I think it's completely future thing, because you have to switch your thinking from playing concert in a different city to thinking how to how to transform your band into a kind of company. And every member of this company, of this band company, should work to achieve global success. So it's a completely new thing in approaching to the music business.
Okay, then really, really short last question. Do you think, or how much of being a global band, being a band that's released, that's marketable on a global scale, how much does the language, like singing in Polish versus singing in English, how much does that become a factor? What do you guys think?
Of course, if you think, it doesn't matter if you are Finnish, German, or whatever. If you want to be international, right, you have to think about English, right? So
yeah, the problem was naturally the young people are speaking very good in English now. But when we comparing one thing, TV. In Scandinavia, when you are looking at the American TV series, everything is in English. You have the subtitles. In Poland, you have the voiceover.
Dubbing, which is terrible.
And the people are not learning, by listening the English language.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can use on NC Plus, to use the subtitles, but it's not easy to do that. And this is the main problem for our countries.
Yeah, and what is more, whatever it's Polish or German or whatever dubbing it is killing real.
It kills the emotion and the story.
Right,
yeah.
It's not
That's terrible. You would think that they would have changed that or done something.
In France, you have, the voiceover. It's actors are speaking. It's
actual actors. Yeah. Okay, well, let's.
One last thing, just on this topic. I think you could give the exact same advice to an American band.
Right. Think global.
In Texas or California, you have to be thinking global. The girl from New Zealand starts with an L. Sorry, I'm not a.
Lord. Yeah.
I mean.
Lord.
Yeah.
Look at that phenomenon. I mean, no one would have expected that. But clearly, she's playing into a global audience from day one, and what an amazing success story.
Right. Okay, well, keep that microphone in your hand. And so this is Ashvin, and he is the former co-founder of BitTorrent, which you guys all probably know about that. He's currently more focused in the TV world as the founder of Samba TV, which is correct me. It's a television application. It's a company that provides applications for smart televisions. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Sorry. But at BitTorrent, very interesting. I want to hear about how. Okay. Well, when you first started coming up with the concept of BitTorrent, well, where did that concept come from? And B, did you foresee it, A, that, and then B, did you foresee it being such an important role, playing such an important role in the music industry?
So to be clear, I wasn't the inventor of BitTorrent. I did
co-found
the company.
Yeah,
Co-founded the company with its inventor. When we commercialized the technology, it was already clear that BitTorrent was playing a role in digital media. Although the technology wasn't invented for a specific kind of distribution. At the time that sort of we got thinking about the business, a big core group of our users were really interested in high fidelity music. These were folks that would go trading either Grateful Dead concerts or Fish concerts, or were really interested in Dave Matthews Band and getting that concert from
love the 90s.
College, like that college bootleg recording. And they wanted it in lossless compression. They wanted it in as the best quality they could possibly get it. There was not an established website where you could go find these things. The bands were cool with it. This was not taking anything away from their CD business.
They didn't even realize what Pandora's box was, in a way.
Truthfully, it worked in a lot of bands' favors to be able to get that kind of exposure. And the industry was only paying the band for packaged media, for the CD.
Right.
And if this was totally sort of building an audience for your packaged media, that's a good thing. That's not taking anything away from from the CD sale. So 2004, when we set up the company, there was a bit of that sort of those niche communities in music built around the technology. There were other niches, like, for example, there were groups that were really interested in Japanese animation, that really couldn't get access to this anywhere, on the store shelf where they lived or at the rental stores or any of this kind of stuff. So this was the best way to get Japanese animation. So there were these niches, and then, of course, the technology blossomed and became the best way to download just about anything. I will say, though, that, BitTorrent's rise preceded a lot of popular services like YouTube and Spotify and all these things that we all know and love today. And I hope it's not too bold to say that a lot of those services wouldn't exist unless there was an audience built for digital media. Technology is what it is, and if we were to pull up that chart, where with CD sales historically, what we could say about 2001 when the CD sales peaked. Was that there was already a format that had won over people. And it wasn't the CD, it was the MP3.
It was MP3, right.
And the reason it won over people is that the experience for music with a collection of MP3s was so much better than lugging around your CD collection and those big binders. I don't know if any of you guys still have these things. But those big binders that we'd walk around with our CD collection, that was a pain in the ass. And by the way, they'd get stolen, they'd get scratched, and all these kinds of things. In 2001, you could download a CD, which was about if the acceptable consumer bit rate at that time was a 128 kilobit encoded MP3. For like the sort of music high fidelity folks, that's like they would thumb their nose at this, but for everyone else, that was okay. You could download a CD in 30 minutes, and you could put almost 150 of them on a hard drive in 2001. That was taking the average bandwidth that we had in the U.S. and the average hard drive size. And that was pretty awesome, to be able to have that much music on your computer at that time. And what the industry saw was that CD sales were starting to plummet. And like we heard earlier, the industry wanted to sort of dig its head in the sand and say, well, the internet's worthless and we need to shut it down. Of course, we know history. Although the industry was very successful from a legal perspective in shutting down Napster, the MP3 was on its long march. It was too late. And what sprung up in the wake of that defeat was 25 variants of Napster, including BitTorrent. So that's basically the history that we're dealing with. Same exact phenomenon happened in DVD, 2007. Take a guess. You could download a DVD. Did I just lose out?
I think so. Oh, there it is.
You could download a DVD in 30 minutes using the prevailing format at the time. It was an MP4. And you could put 150 of them on a hard drive. It's almost exactly the same level of collectability and the same level of portability that the CD had 6 years ago, 6 years previous to that. Where everyone's all interested in, what happens to Blu-ray and when that reaches its level of extinction. But the honest truth is that the physical format had lost its relevance with the consumer.
Thinking about the music producers and BitTorrent and distribution of music as it is right now through the MP3, do you think music producers should be afraid of the continuing distribution platforms like BitTorrent, etc., or should look at it as a positive thing, as being, this is a way that I can very easily get my music out there?
I would argue that, I mean, if you're a creator and you care most about creating,
you don't really
this
care
is the
about
golden
it.
age. I mean, there are so many tools and approaches to expressing yourself, in the written, music, visual formats. It's an awesome time. It's also easier than ever to be heard. We can get the word out about something that's on your, that you really want to get out into the world. You can get your messages out easier than ever before. That also means that there's a lot more competition than ever before. That means there's anyone with an idea or a thought or an expression can get it to market. So that's kind of daunting.
Very saturated.
Yeah, you bet. But, if I was any bit of advice, if you've got an abundance of choices as a consumer, the ones that you'll gravitate to have the best experience. And it's now more than ever, we have to be thinking about experience. I don't think people ever paid for music. I don't think people ever paid for video. I think they paid for the experiences that they had when they were consuming that format. And, to take one of the earlier comments, this is true, this is an estimate of packaged media, but there's a well-known research stat that the music industry doesn't, or sorry, the movie industry doesn't like to talk about, which is that 50% of DVDs purchased never get opened. Meaning that people are buying the DVDs, they're sticking it on their store shelf, or on their bookshelf, almost as sort of a collectible. And that's worth something to people. Going to a concert, that's worth something to people, the experience of being there and consuming, the ability of like to collect and hold something, for years and be able to listen to it over and over again. That's worth something to people.
Right.
And so whatever delivers the best experience, the most memorable experience, is always the winning format.
So how can bands use online formats to create that experience?
Well, so I'm not in the music
industry
business, but I will say that
you dabble.
You got to bring it. I mean, you got to bring it. Whatever the format is, you've got to make sure you're the best in that approach, and then reaching people and making sure that your experience is as memorable as it possibly is.
The online experience, or you mean actually connecting to people, say through concerts?
Every connection is worth something, right? Every single connection, you've got to collect it like it's a jewel, and you want to make sure that every single person has the most meaningful connection you can have.
Okay, good. There's certain practices in the music industry, let's say that, or trends in the music industry that are common, that people just know to do in, say, in the States or just Western Europe. Do you think, and this is open to anybody here, do you think there are certain aspects of that process of creating music, selling it, promoting it, making connections with fans, etc.? Are there any elements of that process that may do or don't work as well in Poland? I guess this will technically be a little bit more for them, but that work well, or that maybe haven't made the transition into Poland as easily, or in other places they were more successful. Whether it's, say, let's use Kickstarter crowdfunding stuff as an example. Sure, now it's taking on more shape in Poland in terms of how bands can make money off of their albums and make money for merchandise or whatever it is. But are there other elements of it that haven't really worked well in Poland? Or maybe ones that have been surprising? Anybody? No?
Always is the matter of money, and it's a small market, and we don't have so much money for promotion and marketing. But we have the same tools, exactly. The producer are using the same engine, and it depends what the artists are recording and what they want to do in Poland. That really, there's plenty of Polish rock, pop rock music in the radio stations, and the radio stations are doing the research, and then they don't want to risk, and that's the biggest problem in Poland, because they are not open to the fresh bands, young bands, because they have the people who are listening to the radio station, and they don't want to have something new. They're scared about that.
So sad.
The biggest radio station, mainstream station, are like that, and the small one, they have an access to small amount of people, and that's the problem. But the competition now between the musicians, the bands, are huge. The beginning
on a global
was,
scale.
Yeah, on the global scale, and also in Poland, because I remember when MySpace was the huge, provider of the music, and it was around 9 million bands and artists, 1.5 million rock bands, and how many artists came from MySpace, which we are remembering.
Right, right.
So some of them, like Lily Island, but it was not too many. Naturally, we use this tool for searching a good artist, like music companies. Now there's a MySpace, Facebook. We're looking the Facebook. We're looking YouTube because the artists are putting the videos. But there is more possibility to find good artists. The selection is stronger than before. But the competition is also, stronger because there's plenty of people who wanted to be a superstar. Right. Now we have in TV in Poland, 4 talent shows with the music. And they're killing each other, and I think it's the last one will be this year, maybe next year, because
there's almost no sense.
Completely. There's not so many talents in the country like Poland. Every country is,
Well, but I would agree with you. But the thing we met in Poland regarding the talent shows is since first day they went to TV is that. In the old times, the artists created something more than just singing some cover song. Even if they sang better than Beyonce, they are still not Beyonce. No way. Right. So what is going later on? The artist, the singer, who sang a lot of covers in the talent show. In the end, she or he. They had nothing to offer to the company because they can only sing these covers. So that's the big difference with the old times regarding new times. They are waiting for the producer who write a song, super hit for the company that do a promotion. No way. If you want to be a star, if you want to be an artist with big A, you have to take all these things into your hands. Right.
Take it seriously.
It's interesting. I was just listening, and maybe in answering your previous question, listening to the answer. If someone who has a brother who's a musician and sort of was waiting for that record deal for years and got it, but sort of was betting big on that moment when he would get discovered by an A&R to get signed up. If today the A&Rs can just look at your YouTube views, look at your Facebook and Twitter followers, and they don't have to gamble anymore, it's pretty clear what what the advice is.
Right.
And we can look at there was a bit of advice that came from probably one of the most famous bloggers. The interesting thing about bloggers is that they didn't have anyone publishing on their behalf. They had to do it themselves, and they had to build their own audience. The guy who basically is the #1 tech blogger, Michael Arrington, who started TechCrunch, gave this bit of advice to someone when they asked him, how did you start TechCrunch and build this massive following? He said, I showed up to work every day.
Nice. All right.
That's the thing.
Okay, well, we are actually, we're going over a little bit on time, so I wanted to open up the floor. Does anybody here have any questions? Yes. All right, over here first.
Hi there, Dominic. I spent some of my life in Toronto, Canada. So I lived in Poland and I lived in Canada. And I lived there for 13 years. I came back about 10 years ago. And the biggest shock in the music industry in Poland, I noticed, was lip sync on TV. And it always baffled me why that happened and why it's still happening in terms of concerts and TV performances. You don't experience that very much in the States or in Canada or anywhere else. There's probably cultures like Poland that have lip sync. But I was just wondering what that says about our culture, about our appreciations of music, and the fact that hasn't really changed, right?
Lipstick? Okay. You are telling about dubbing in a TV show?
Yeah, exactly. When someone performs, they're usually just a performance. There's absolutely no.
It depends on TV show. I saw in a French TV show Mick Jagger in the dubbing, And also it was plenty of American artists and French artists. It's depends of the TV show. Naturally, if you have, in Poland now, you don't have too many places, you know, for singing, because in the normal TV, you have the breakfast TV, like TVN, like TVP2, and also the festivals. But now festivals is depend of the artists, but some of them are playing on playback and some live. For example, my band, T-Love, they never played anything in TV on playback. And that's the main thing. Sometimes the artists are coming with one guitarist and they're singing real. And it's not a Polish specific. I've seen that in a French, Italian, German TV, a playback, you know, show.
Yeah, probably. I'm just saying that, you know, it was such a rapid change that I didn't experience that change. And I was wondering, like, why that happened. Because a while back, like 20 years ago, or 15, 16 years ago, there was a lot of performances, but very little lip sync, right?
Yeah, I will answer you as a former producer of Sopot Festival, and I was really fighting for playing live, because I truly believe that it's the only way to do the festival. If you have to judge something, it's like from the very beginning till the very end. But sometimes, and I know it, the broadcasting station and all these technical things and measures force producers to use playbacks, like musical playbacks, and later on maybe some singers are singing live. If you're asking me if it's cool, no, of course it's not cool, but I wouldn't say it's Polish. It's at least a European thing, because I agree with you. I saw many shows using playbacks. It's
Eurovision contest is half playback, and you see it's a big show. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this is Bartek. I have a question about online video. Do you see? Is it possible at all that another video, like an online video platform, will emerge that will be focused on music and somehow take away a little bit of what YouTube is doing? Is it possible at all?
You have Vivo. Vivo really is not a platform. It's a universal and Sony screen with Sheikh of Qatar. That's the owner of Vivo. For example, owner is not in Vivo from one reason. They are paying 50% what we want and what YouTube is paying to us. And 95% of the people flow is passing through Google to YouTube to go to Vivo. That there's no reason to give them the money. If it will be another platform, it depends. You know, a few years ago, Murdoch bought for $400 million MySpace and sold that for 50 billion. That MySpace was a huge platform, and after that became, you know, the Facebook. What will be after Facebook and what will be in the future, nobody knows. This world is changing very fastly, and we are okay with the changes, because it's not a stable market like in the 60s or 50s. It's 21st century.
There's a sort of rule of thumb that I've heard people articulate, that for sort of a consumer standard to be overthrown by another consumer standard, it has to be 10x better than the previous. And, you know, Google was 10 times better than Yahoo. Google is not holding back with YouTube. I mean, the amount of money they throw at just encoding a video, you know, 50 or even 75 different ways for every different device out there at every bit rate. It's, I think, a pretty difficult thing to beat YouTube at its own game at this point. Unless Google just, for whatever reason, falls asleep at the wheel and they open up some gap. But, I mean, they throw an insane amount of money at music acquisition rights, and you know, they're going after pretty much every category of video, throwing, I would consider, almost an irrational amount of money at that, because they don't want to let anyone, and including bids on things like Hulu and other things, which have certain pockets of rights. But on top of that, the bandwidth costs, the encoding costs, and everything else that goes into that's probably pretty difficult.
Hi, I got a question. Ben Dressler from Spotify. Hi. I just wondered about the like, one thing that digital music, and especially streaming music and on-demand music, have changed is obviously that we now have this kind of all this data on music listening. So we know basically what people are searching for, what they're listening, how they're listening, etc., etc. So this is really becoming like a massive two-way conversation, whereas music used to be very, very one-way. How do you think that's going to change the music industry?
What exactly is the question?
So with this new potential of like having basically listening behavior in big data format.
Yeah, I understand.
What do you think is that going to be?
Warner signed a deal, exclusive deal with Shazam in States. And now we know in which part of, for example, Manhattan, the people are listening or searching which kind of music. And Linkin Park new album, we base that this information and we use that and we send the information to the right people. And also 1/10 of the songs bought on iTunes was through Shazam. That is, the people are Shazamming, the songs. And after that, they're buying or listening on Spotify, Deezer, etc., etc. It's changing the way of searching because I had a long discussion with the radio station about RDS in the cars, in the radio, and not every radio station are giving you the right information. Who is singing now? And there's a new song you really don't know who is singing, and you are taking your smartphone, Shazam. In few seconds you can buy it, you can listen, and it's easy. And I think in the future, Shazam will be also in the cars. You put one button, you know everything. You can play this from Spotify, for example, if you are the customer for Spotify. The life will be much more easier, and more people will be listening what they want. It's like for the future, for the film business. VOD will kill, the TV in the future. Because you don't like to watch the TV ads all the time. And Polsat, for example.
So data in and of itself, I mean, data is always valuable, but you have to figure out what problem you want to solve. Shazam as a core technology was pretty useless, but as an app to help you, figure out what you're listening to became very useful. Pandora, the service, the name that came up earlier, actually started as a recommendation technology. Basically harvesting data and trying to help you find things that you might be interested in. It went nowhere until it basically solved a problem for consumers who wanted just basically an alternative to broadcast radio. And so I think you almost have to go one step further than just collecting data. What's the problem that you want to solve with the data?
If not, thank you very much for the interesting panel. Big applause, of course.